And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Joe Concha. Coming up tonight, ISIS remains in the news after they've taken at least 150 Syrian Christians hostage. CPAC begins in Washington. Our own Rick Unger, who's there primarily for the minibar and most likely Pigs in a Blanket apps, will be giving us an update on the political stuff as well. And the federal government is getting ready to regulate the internet. And we'll be talking about that and much, much more with NBC sports guy Dave Briggs is back. David, welcome to the show. The tables have turned.
Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. He has tremendous hair, doesn't he? And somebody with even better hair, the Reverend Jenny Crumpton, joins us. Welcome back.
Hi, good to be here.
Nice color on you. I
Thanks.
like that, yes. And finally, Rabbi Brad Hirschfeld. He's the editor of the Wisdom Daily. He joins us as well.
I do. It's good to be here.
That's a joke if I've ever heard one, huh? A jock, a reverend, and a rabbi walking into a studio. Without further ado, it's time for your daily download. Well, the Justice Department today announced that 3 New York residents have plotted to travel to Syria to join ISIS. The men range from 19 to 30 years old. 2 were citizens of Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, and 1 man was accused of plotting to kill the president. Meanwhile, yesterday we told you that ISIS abducted 90 Syrian Christians. It turns out they've taken even more hostages than that. Ask Syrian Human Rights Network reports that the actual number is about 150. And no surprise here, ISIS is threatening to kill them all. To get an update on these 2 developing stories, we are joined by former CIA analyst Lisa Ruth, who joins us from Newsmax Studios in South Florida. Lisa, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Good to be here.
And let's start with the breaking news out of New York City. What can you tell me about the 3 men who were arrested today for planning to join ISIS?
Well, essentially what it looks like is this is the same situation we've seen over and over, the same situation we saw in Minnesota, in fact. They are people who've been living here but were recruited online probably and wanted to go join ISIS. The jihadist message continues to resonate. And really, I think this is a good example of just how far it's come. It's here, and you have to really be vigilant. We've also got these girls who were traveled over there. So it is another example of ISIS's ability to spread its message on social media and recruit.
Well, you're right about that. I think back in 2001, 2002, we didn't hear much about people, particularly Westerners, particularly those from the United States, joining Al-Qaeda. But now, thanks to Twitter and thanks to really, I don't want to say impressive when it comes to anything when it comes to ISIS, but it's the only word you could use. And impressive, a very impressive communications and propaganda machine that certainly seems to be recruiting Westerners by the dozens. It seems like we're hearing of another group, and particularly women as well, going over there every day. Let me ask you this. Do you believe we're going to see more types of situations like this? I think so, yes.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you completely. I think it's bizarre for most Americans because you sit there and say, if you saw those beheading videos, that certainly didn't make you want to run and join the group. If anything, it would turn you against them. But this message for people who are subject to be brought into it, this resonates. And as you said, we've got 3 young girls. There was a case a couple months ago of a girl in Virginia, a woman who was trying to get other young girls to join. And these are jihadi brides. I think we're going to see more and more of it. I think it's going to be increasingly slick. As you said, it's pretty impressive, and I hate to say that as well. But it's like they've got their own PR firm out there. They're building their brand, they're improving on it, and the brand is getting stronger and stronger.
It's a sick brand, that's for sure. Why don't you give me an estimate, and I know that's a very hard number to put on, but how many people in the United States you think are sympathetic to ISIS? Is it a couple of hundred? Is it even a couple of thousand? Tough number to throw out, I know.
Unfortunately, I think you've just hit the nail right on the head. This is a big problem. We don't know. My colleagues and I are going back and forth all the time with, did you see this on social media? Did you see this? Trying to get a sense of how many people this is resonating with. We really have no idea. And it could be 100, but it's probably not, because if you just look at the numbers who've gone over. I heard a number the other day, 10,000. I think that's probably high. On the other hand, I just don't know. And it's very frustrating from an intelligence standpoint because, again, how can you counter something when you really don't even know how effective it is or who it's reaching?
Lisa, final question. I only have about 30 seconds. Last night, Fred Flight said that this looks like the beginning of a genocide when it comes to Christians in Syria and Iraq. Would you agree with that characterization?
I wish I could say no, but I absolutely agree, and I think that this is really a very, very bad sign. Genocide, absolutely, and unfortunately.
Well, hate to end on that note, Lisa, but we appreciate you joining us and enjoy the warm weather. I think it's about 84 degrees warmer where you are than where we are right now. So at least let's end this on a happy note.
It is.
For you, anyway. Thank you.
Thanks.
Rabbi, you've worked with Islamic extremists before.
I have.
Where's this all going?
Well, I think we have to be very clear. A lot of people are talking about, can we win? I want to be very clear. Not only can we have to win. This is not something where anyone can lose, and it's going to involve three things, I think: fighting, talking, and a better understanding of the end game. We are going to have to kill a lot of bad guys, and anyone who's squeamish about that doesn't understand what we're up against. But we're also going to have to engage a lot of people we don't like to talk to, a lot of people who are crazy, and it's going to also require naming that what we're dealing with is a faith-driven enemy. I'm not accusing an entire faith, but hiding from the role of religion in this will actually get more people killed. We're going to have to do both, and one of the challenges we have right now is the fighters don't like to talk, and the talkers aren't willing to fight, and that's really dangerous, and that's on us.
When you say we have to talk to some people that we don't like to talk to, I assume you're saying Iran.
I don't know if it's necessarily Iran, and I think, again, I just want all options on the table all the time. People I don't like to talk to, I often have to engage, but I want to do it from a position of strength. And that's the last piece. We do have to understand the end game. If this is becoming genocide, and it may be, we're going to have to put a stop to that. No ifs, ands, or buts, full stop. On the other hand, I think the idea this is going to be some massive nation building and we're going to turn parts of the Middle East beyond the state of Israel, which looks a lot like the United States, into other United States is incredibly naive. We may actually have to break up nations, as we did in the former Yugoslavia when there were historic hatreds, and we said, look, if you people can't live together and will only murder each other, then we will have to separate you by force of arms. Not to build new nations, because that doesn't always work, but to prevent the genocides that may be coming.
Well, we've certainly been there on the nation building front, no question. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, guys, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit in the next block, but unfortunately, we have some bills to pay, so that would be that. Rabbi, thank you for those thoughts. I appreciate it. And coming up next, our own Rick Unger joins us from CPAC. That's in Washington. Unger at CPAC. Isn't that a conservative kind of gathering? Interesting. This is the Daily Wrap from New York City, only on Newsmax TV. Welcome back to Daily Wrap, everybody. I am Joe Concha, joined by Dave Briggs, the Reverend Jenny Crumpton, and Rabbi Brad Hirschfeld. I did promise I wanted to get your thoughts on what we were talking about last block. Certainly, it was something that was very important, Jenny, in terms of this could be genocide. This could be the next Third Reich. I know that you sometimes have a more sympathetic view of the world. Your thoughts on ISIS, where this is going, and what we have to do to defeat them?
Well, I'm certainly not sympathetic with ISIS.
I don't mean that.
But, right.
In terms of diplomacy.
I actually really, I agree with the good rabbi here. We
good
do
rabbi.
a lot of
Big trouble,
interfaith
or-
dialogue, so I agree with your perspective. But I think the former NATO Commander General Wesley Clark made a really good point today that these types of propaganda attempts are very deliberate by ISIS, like going into a very rural, tiny, northeast Syrian town that was not guarded well. The people were very vulnerable. This is where the 150 Christians came from, mostly women, children, and the elderly. These are often signs that they're struggling a little bit because these are propaganda attempts to get more recruits by doing such things. So
you think like when they light the Jordanian pilot on fire or they do the beheadings, that's just, they're trying to show
was a
that...
very specific message. Yes, absolutely. Because as we know, they set the Jordanian pilot on fire, which in the Muslim world is just a terrible travesty. You don't burn bodies.
So they're trying to
in
one-up
Islam.
themselves in terms of shock value because they know that the media will cover those
Absolutely. And we do it for them.
Dave, we've heard a lot about, in the beginning of this, a lot of people were against ground troops because we're weary of war, and we were in Afghanistan for all those years, and we still are to a certain extent in Iraq as well. Now you see poll after poll saying we need ground troops, and that's the only way that we're ever going to defeat this enemy, that airstrikes are not enough.
Well, I totally agree with that. You are going to need troops at some point, but I think the bottom line is this can't be the United States leading all efforts on this. This war has to be a broad-based coalition, and it's got to start in that region. It's got to be that region rising up and saying, we are standing up against this. This is not the United States war. This is all of our war. Because if it looks like ours, this will just be like Afghanistan and Iraq all over again. It needs to be the entire region joining forces with us.
And we're seeing that with the Jordanians doing airstrikes, because obviously their pilot, what happened to him, we just mentioned, and the Egyptians as well, because of the 21 Christians there as well. So yeah, I think Middle East boots on the ground. And by the way, the French were attacked recently, and obviously the Italians, Rome is always a target. You're right. This needs to be, I hate to call it a world war, but that kind of coalition.
Well, it's got to be a global coalition. The most important moments to this point, you're both right, with the mobilization of Jordanian forces and Egyptian forces. And in fact, when they asked the Sheikh, the Khalif of ISIS, you know, about attacking Christians and when are you going to get to Israel and Jews, said, oh no, we'll get there. But first we have to purify our people. This is fundamentally a civil war. And that's what's really scary. You can't fight someone else's civil war for them. And that's where you're 100% correct. Until this is thrashed out among the 1.4 billion Muslims, we have to make sure there is no genocide. And Christians are particularly vulnerable. And we do have to watch out for that. But fundamentally, this will not be brought to a good end until within the community called global Islam, this is worked out and this is crushed by Muslims because it's not who they want to be as a global people.
And we have to keep in mind that a ground war is exactly what ISIS wants. That is what is going to set off their apocalypse that they believe that they're bringing into being to create the end of the world, where true Islam will be revealed as the truth. So we have to be very careful about sending in ground troops, when we do it, how we do it, how many we send. And I think we're right to really be very deliberate about thinking through that and trying other methods before we play into their hands in such a way. They've really put us in a terrible position.
I just wonder if they need an excuse for declaring the apocalypse, right? And you know, you can't kind of get a girl pregnant. I guess you kind of can't kind of go to war.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah, that's true.
I think maybe, you know, we had an ABCL on a couple of nights ago, Carl Higbee, who said, you know, Dave, go big or go home.
Right. The way to deconstruct those apocalyptic dreams is win. It's amazing how victory makes people rethink their
But
apocalyptic
don't you think
visions.
it'll be a little tougher since they're a non-state actor? They're so slippery, they're all over, they're very virtual. I don't think this will be the type of ground war that we're used to.
No, it won't be. That's why I said talking and fighting. But the talkers who are worried about going into fight will also have to be ready to fight. And it's that combination that we're going to have to come together as a country to mobilize well in order to accomplish what we need to accomplish.
How do you battle back against the recruitment, though? I guess that's my, I mean, do you have to peel back the curtain here and expose to the world what they are doing? Hey, you want to go ahead. Here's what you're looking forward to. It's a virtual prison there.
Well, I think that's
they
a
will
big
take your
piece of it.
passport. They will never let you get out. And
It's
then
a
show them what
Yes, I
happens
think people
there.
need to see the horror they're going to, and we have to admit that for some people, that horror is their faith. And that's what we're going to have to deal with and really hold that up to the world and say, is that really who you want to be?
Well, and these are often young, very young, disenfranchised people. Even the ones in the United States are often from another culture and may feel a little dislocated and disenfranchised, and they play upon that. They clearly see the violence played over and over in our media on a daily basis. They have a good idea of what they're going to be a part
The
of.
women that are recruited, shouldn't we show them how women are treated by ISIS? I mean, let's not hide it. Let's
No,
get it
I-
out
for
for
I
sure.
sure.
don't think anyone's hiding that.
The
I think
best
it's
disinfectant
pretty-
is bright light, but we also can't be naive. There are people who actually choose that life, and it's not only because they didn't get a job, and it's not only because of economic issues. People will act against economic self-interest to pursue the faith they deeply love. This is, at some level, about that kind of conflict, and we're going to have to admit that. There's no getting out of it, because it's beyond the rational.
Well, interestingly, the State Department has just begun a new group for social media to try to push back against the propaganda and start our own Western allies sort of social media campaign to really try to let young people know what is going on.
Actually,
and
what
be
I'd rather
clear with
have them do is reach out to Muslims we generally are not comfortable with but are not quite ISIS and have them tell those kids, you don't have to go that far. You don't have to please America, but you don't have to go that far. It's not about making them who we're trying to convert, I mean that word, into us. It's helping them be a less toxic version of who they want to be.
It seems almost like gangs here, right? That kids join gangs in inner cities because they just want to belong to something.
Right.
They don't feel like they have any sort of future, but hey, I go in here, I could be tough, right? I'm part of a group. I could say I accomplished something, as sick as even this is, right? But I see kind of some parallels there between kids joining American
Absolutely.
gangs in Chicago and joining this. But I think once they get in, they realize, oh, wait a minute, this is
And
far,
then they
far
can't get
worse.
out.
Yeah, exactly. But the bottom line is that, again, you put Tinder in Syria and Iraq, and suddenly happiness comes. That's what I say. The Tinder.
They'll all be distracted.
Right.
Swipe right to save the world, huh? That was Joe's bumper
This is a happy show. I'm trying to end on a happy note.
So,
Anyway, coming up next on the Daily Wrap, the Obama administration is ready to regulate your internet. That's next on the Daily Wrap. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. So we couldn't get Rick Unger in the previous segment due to some technical difficulties, but we will try again tomorrow. One more reason to tune back in. Speaking of technology, the Obama administration is ready to get into the internet game. No, not with the new website, because that worked out so well, but to regulate the whole damn thing. The FCC will vote tomorrow on new rules pertaining to net neutrality. The changes would allow the FCC to regulate the internet like a public utility and would require equal access to all online content. The proposed rule will also allow the FCC to review and likely punish non-neutral practices that may harm consumers or edge providers. Republicans in Congress have asked to have the vote postponed so the topic can be discussed in congressional hearings. That kind of makes sense. Not only did the FCC decline, how's that for transparency, but the FCC chairman, Tom Wheeler, has refused to appear before the House Oversight Committee. Dave Briggs is the first move by the federal government to regulate the internet. Don't know about you, but this gives me the creeps.
Well, it does give me the creeps, but it also confuses me because if you walk, I mean, this is a largely media-driven story. You walk down, this is one of the most educated cities in the United States. Walk down the street, talk to 1,000 people, you might get a dozen that know what net neutrality is or how that impacts them. So I think the coverage here doesn't exactly justify the means. But in terms of the transparency, therein lies the problem. No one knows what they're voting on. No one knows what we're even talking about. And so what exactly is this new rule going to do? Well, on the surface, it sounds good. It's actually going to help the average consumer, net neutrality, on the surface of it. But it starts to sound a lot like Nancy Pelosi's famous quote with healthcare, where
don't
if
know
you
what's in
pass
it.
the bill, then we'll find out what's in it. And yes, that was blown out of proportion in terms of the context of it, but it sounds a lot like that in terms of, we don't know what the heck is in this bill, yet we're going to vote on it and cram it down people's throats. And how many industries are helped by more government regulation? We heard about this with healthcare, that it was going to help. Didn't help so far. So look, let's bring this down to the open. Let's bring it out to the public. Let's let everyone know what the heck is going on before we vote on this.
Look,
Mr.
this
Wheeler.
Before you respond, I want, Dave makes a very good point, all right? And you're always very prepared. You have your computer there. I know when you come in, your notes are meticulous. You're a very intelligent person anyway. What is net neutrality?
It's about keeping a free and open internet. See, what you may not realize is that
It's not open right now?
we want to keep it that way.
Right.
It's open right now, but Verizon, AT&T, Comcast have spent $42 million already lobbying to take control of the internet. Profits, big corporations taking away our access, our free access, our ability to create content.
How are they taking away
But
our
by
access?
buying it up and by charging exorbitant amounts for profits, it would
Sounds
take
like
away.
capitalism.
I mean, I think this is what's really
No,
interesting.
no, no, no.
I think that net
Anyway, let
neutrality-
me
Go ahead.
finish.
Finish. It's the best dressed
So
out
what
of
you
three
what
of
you may not know is that Tom Wheeler was a former lobbyist for the big telecom.
Yes, he was.
So he's talking outside both sides of his mouth. That's why he doesn't want the congressional hearings. But let me say, there are grassroots groups that have been calling on Barack Obama to do this for a long time. So, you know, there are a lot of people. There was an unprecedented 4 million comments unprecedented 4 million comments submitted to the FCC about this. 99% of them were in favor of net neutrality.
Before you
we want to
answer-
keep it
Yes.
free.
Before you answer,
Notice you didn't prep like I come in prepared with a screen because we know who I am.
You're
Go
all
ahead.
prepared.
Go.
I'm just saying. Look. Here's what I do notice at home. All right, just to bring this down to a very human level, that whenever I try to watch something on Netflix,
Right.
halfway through, every time, for whatever reason, suddenly my screen, because I'm on a smart TV, so I'm going through the internet, and it just doesn't seem like Netflix has the juice that my video on demand when I get a movie does.
Correct.
And I just get the feeling there's something evil going on.
So, in some ways, that evil is meant to be addressed by this law, but I think people are fighting about this. It's a proxy fight. Some people are creeped out by big government, so they don't want it passed. Some people are creeped out by too many profits, so they want it done. The truth of the matter is, what net neutrality really treats, would treat it like a phone call, like a common carrier. But the internet isn't a phone call. When you make a phone call, point A through point B, directly to point C. The internet has so many on-ramps and twists and turns. It seems to me this should be phased in very slowly so that two things happen. In the short term, you would have a better user experience. But over time, we'd have to have a lot more conversation about what regulating those businesses is. Because just being afraid they'll make too much money is a bad reason to shut down an industry.
That's not the only reason. I mean, we want to be able, think about that. The internet was a product of the grassroots. I mean, it was a frontier where people were able to just start putting their thoughts, their organizations,
Adult
All of
movies.
this beg for public, open hearings and transparency, the word you used.
Yeah, it
Rorschach
absolutely
test.
does.
Talk
Talk to the former lobbyist of Big Telecom.
Okay.
He's the one standing in the way.
Well, the freedom now goes over to me because we have to go to commercial. One little problem with your argument, by the way, you said when somebody makes a phone call, nobody makes phone calls anymore. Everybody's texting.
I'm old, what
What's
can I tell
that?
you?
What's
Okay,
a phone?
anyway, coming up next, it's potluck time. This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV from a not-so-chilly New York City. Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's potluck time. We're having it with coffee, by the way, with lots of cream. And this is where we discuss our favorite stories of the day. David Briggs, it says in prompter, you are our head chef.
First off, you're not having coffee. You're having cream with a little bit of coffee. It's not coffee with a little cream. It's cream with a touch of coffee.
Maybe it's a milkshake.
We'll get to that later on.
I got to
in the
gain
show.
some weight. Anyway, David, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to stay in my lane now. We'll talk some sports because LeBron James, his 10-year-old son, Shocker, is an outstanding basketball player.
Not adopted.
He is actually being recruited, though, by the colleges. They are not only commenting on him on public television, but they are sending him letters, and LeBron's a little ticked off at this.
Wait, is he a sophomore or junior? I missed the age part.
He's 10.
Oh, 10.
10 years old.
Oh, that's fifth grade.
And
from what I
already
remember.
receiving
youngin'.
letters from the colleges, which angers LeBron a little bit. But hey, LeBron, you got this whole thing started. You have become a global icon. There will someday be worth $1 billion or more. This, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, folks. Here he is. LeBron's kidding me. He is outstanding, and you have to recruit him if you are a college coach in need of some publicity and a future star.
He's wearing 6. He's wearing the Miami number, not the Cleveland.
The question is for everyone, how young is too young to start recruiting a young kid? First off, we don't know if he's going to be good at all. I mean, he could be 15 and stink up the gym. He might never grow again. But how young is too young to start sending a kid college recruiting letters?
Jennifer?
I would
say
say
play
this
ball.
is a little creepy.
Yeah?
I mean, he's a tiny kid. I think everybody's, going for the name recognition. They're wanting to jockey into position, get him interested in certain colleges early on. But, another way to look at it is that a lot of other young kids who aren't the son of wealthy, famous people would probably be dying for an opportunity like this.
They might be. Look, I don't think this is really about his skill, because you're right, that we have no idea if this kid's going to pan out, but his last name is James, and even looks like his dad, so it's a great marketing play.
Yeah.
I think it's an
Heir to the
opportunity to do
throne.
one question and ask, what is the impact on the kids? Figure out how basketball is an on-ramp to a better life, whether you get a contract or not. And then work down. And whatever age it works for those little kids, start. If it's 9 or if it's 19. How can playing sports actually be an on-ramp to a better life? You do that, I don't care about the age.
You bring up a good point. I think this could potentially be damaging for kids because if, of course, he doesn't reach the potential that everyone hopes he does,
They drop
then
him.
what?
Right.
Then
He's
it's just
doomed.
Going to be a big
right.
disappointment.
But if I'm a college coach and I'm maybe maybe not a Duke or a North Carolina, I'm offering him a scholarship right now. If I'm Nike, I'm
Right, there
offering
you
him a shoe deal because you might get some publicity on this. Even if he stinks, I'll give him a scholarship because he comes to your school, you sell an extra 10,000 tickets.
And
I
it's a-
say, hey, let's go with this.
Let me
Let's
get
run
the
with
final
this.
word before
It's a
we
great
go to
way
you.
to start teaching sportsmanship. You know, start talking to kids about their futures, their scholarship, their sportsmanship, their skill, their life skills. I think it's, you know, it could be turned and flipped into some kind of good, but I doubt it would be.
You want to know the irony? Michael Jordan was horrible at that age.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
believe he got cut from his
Cut.
JV
He got
team,
cut,
right?
yep.
Yep.
And LeBron James never went to college. So maybe if this kid ends up being really good, they're going to waste their time because he's going to right to the pros
Can't
anyway.
do that anymore.
Right,
You
yeah.
gotta
That's
play
true.
1 year.
You got to play
college.
1 year. That's
Gotta
true.
play 1 year.
Boy, I
year.
sound
That's
stupid. See,
true.
that's why we have a sports guy here instead of a wannabe. Jennifer, go ahead.
Okay,
me getting out of being
so
embarrassed.
previously we've talked about the Christian cult followers of Christ and how they deny their own children medical care because they believe in faith healing, and they've had hundreds of their own children die of very easily just taking care of diseases like, you know, stomach bugs or the flu or pneumonia. Well, now it's hit a new level because Idaho Republican Representative Christy Perry is now defending their quote-unquote religious freedom, saying that they should not be forced to take their children to the doctor, even when they're on their deathbed. While, meanwhile, there's graveyards in Idaho full of hundreds of young children who have died from easily preventable diseases. and
I've stood in
problems.
those graveyards, and it's a horror. And I really believe that often people don't understand freedom of religion, and they think it's freedom of worship, and that when it comes to your rest of your life, the government should control your beliefs. And I don't feel that's right. That's not what freedom of religion is. But when it involves abusing your kids, I don't care what your faith is.
Right.
People have the right to opt not to have health care if they don't want it, if that's their faith. And I will defend that to the end. But to have little kids dying of easily preventable diseases, of dehydration, of the flu, that's obscene.
I don't see why this isn't murder.
We needed the lawyers. Murder, manslaughter, it's certainly criminal. And we take kids away from families for so much less. It's such an abuse of the notion of faith. Not because you don't have a right to any belief you want. Have it. Believe whatever you want. But when you coerce others in the name of that faith, whatever it is, we have a problem.
And Rep. Perry defended herself by saying that death is a part of life and that she thinks other people in America can't handle death. And that this cult of followers believes that death is natural and that they accept death, which is just a ridiculous argument. It's very disturbing.
I'd love to have more time to talk about this on
As
on
would
another
I.
night
She needs
because
to be voted
it's a
out.
whole bowl of wrong. And when we come back, a whole bowl of right, more potluck, including mine. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. Welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Let's get right back to our meal. Rabbi, what did you cook up tonight?
National Security Advisor Susan Rice is offering a double scoop of hostility to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. And I want to share the quote. And by the way, all cards on the table. I am opposed to him coming to give this talk. I think it's not a wise thing to do.
Why?
But because I think he is actually creating tension where it doesn't need to exist. Whether he's right or wrong doesn't matter. But here's what's also wrong, and I want you to hear the quote. He has injected a degree of partisanship into the relationship that should be above politics. Great. I actually agree with that. But if it should be above politics, then so should the White House. And they should be able to say, we disagree with your coming, but of course we're going to meet with you. You're our oldest and best ally in the most complicated region in the world. So you tell me who's injecting politics now. The fact that someone else is doing it wrong doesn't give you a pass to double down and do even more. And she goes further. It's destructive to the fabric of the relationship. How? It's only destructive to the fabric of the relationship if this administration allows that to happen. Right? Whether it's a personal relationship or a relationship between nations, it's only destructive if both parties agree it's going to get there. If one party says, we think you're wrong, we're going to publicly say it, but it'll never be allowed to be destructive because this is too important for that. And that really does come back to the White House, not to Netanyahu.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Where did this all go wrong? Where the president doesn't like Netanyahu and Netanyahu doesn't like the president. I don't understand why this is so tense.
So
Yet
this
we
is,
talk to Iran
this is
like we're
dime
not gonna
store
happy hour.
psychology, so you know exactly what it's worth. But I will tell you what I think it's about. I think you have two leaders who are actually playing out dramas that are much bigger than the offices they inhabit. I think you've got a prime minister of Israel who is living out the legacy of his dead brother, who was the hero of the raid on Entebbe, and lives with a sense of mortal threat even when it isn't always there. There are plenty facing Israel, but they're not always there, and he's always playing that out. And you have a president who has a vision of himself because he is historically significant, whether you agree with him or not, who is playing things out that are beyond the best political interests of the country. Not because he doesn't believe in them, but because he is a kind of a mythic figure, and there's a lot of baggage. And so I think what's happened is they've bumped into each other. They each have this grander than office vision, and they haven't, either one of them, figured out, oh, right, we were elected to do what we think is right, even when we don't like the person we're doing it with.
Jenny?
Well, I mean, you know, both of them have acknowledged that they talk on a very regular basis, and both of them have said it's not that they don't necessarily not like one another. They do have differences, obviously, especially with Iran. But, you know, I think the White House has been put between a rock and a hard place in this situation. I can't imagine how exactly you back down from Boehner inviting Netanyahu without telling you. You know, it started on a very sour note of distrust and politics and partisanship and intrigue. And I think it's very hard to retrieve that from that beginning.
Dave, last word.
Shouldn't the president at least send the vice president to this speech? He's not condoning, agreeing with everything he said in the speech by appearing.
That's a happy medium.
Well, there's
No
talk about
compromise.
having the speech in a different location so that it's not as weighty.
No, because
They're
Jenny, here's the
talking
key.
about
It's hard to back down. It's not about backing down. Once the White House thought this was about backing down, they made a mistake.
no,
one's
not
backing
down.
It's disagreeing.
what do you then do to go forward?
You say, I think you're wrong, but we're going to meet because
It's-
you're our best ally.
And that's our last word. Unfortunately, I know Briggs want to jump back in there again, but he doesn't realize what part of the show we're on. It's my turn. I'm not about to have my segment get
You go,
stepped on.
Joe.
No, you're going to like this, Briggs, actually. So should news organizations ban on-air talent from Twitter? And here's why I'm asking this question again, because one Keith Olbermann, formerly of MSNBC, Fox, MSNBC, ESPN, and ESPN. Those are the 5 places he's worked at and worked at again. Well, he sent out a tweet about Penn State students. There's Keith there. Never seems to age. Always kind of has that same kind of look and nice glasses.
Botox.
Smug smirk.
Yes, smug. Let's read those tweets, shall we? At Keith Olbermann, the students, I'm an alum, gainfully employed in D.C., are pitiful for running an organization that raises millions, okay? And Keith writes back, again, get your dollars back. You didn't learn, I'll do my Keith voice, get your dollars back. You didn't learn how to read. Penn State students are pitiful because they're Penn State students. Period. That got retweeted 189 times. So, you know, Keith went to Cornell, a satellite school
And
of
got
Cornell.
removed
for Cornell.
from the air for a week, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So he's suspended again. So here's my question. All right, we'll do a little lightning round practice yay and nay. He represents ESPN ultimately. That could be his personal Twitter account, but there's no filter. So he could go right out to his, and he has many, I think over 1 million followers, and say something. Now ESPN has to answer for him. My question is, does everybody on the air, including myself, need an editor for Twitter? Quickly.
I'm going to go no. I think that's too much control.
Nay?
Live with the risk. Nay.
Okay, Jenny?
I say no editor, free speech, but I say contractual parameters around what they will do on Twitter.
Agreed. Dave, 5
There
seconds.
are contractual parameters about what we do. Trust me, I signed a contract, so no, it's an unfiltered medium, and that's the only way broadcast television can create that type of controversy.
Okay, and that's our note, and that's the preview of what we're doing next. Yay or nay is next. This is the Daily Wrap only on Newsmax TV. Welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's time for Yay or Nay.
There is no life I know to compare with your imagination living there.
You know,
Delicious.
people talk about the best actors of every decade, Gene Wilder's the top 5 of the 1970s. He had a nice little run. And thank you, control room or producer, whoever decided to put that Willy Wonka on and not that ridiculous one with Johnny Depp. All right? That's not our yay or nay. How many of you have wished you could do that, actually drink coffee and then eat the cup when you were a kid? Well, now you can. All thanks to KFC, of all places, who just launched the world's first edible coffee cup. That's true. Do we have B-roll? Sure we do. We have B-roll of KFC. Boy, it looks warm there. The coffee cups, called Scoffy Cups, are made out of a unique biscuit, then wrapped in a sugar paper and lined with a rich, creamery layer of chocolate that melts over time, allowing you to eat it when you're done with your coffee. Edible coffee cups, Dave Briggs. Yay or nay?
I am absolutely yay,
my
but
coffee.
I don't know if it could be coffee like this. Can the camera shoot the color of this coffee?
That
Can
is
one?
sick
Let me
up
see
in
if
there.
I mean, it is.
It's a light.
There it is. That is not coffee.
Not
Sorry to
matching the
change the
weight
subject, but
So you're not judgmental about the cups, but you're judgmental about, the coffee.
that goes in
I
it.
got it. Okay,
Now,
everyone has their lines.
I love the edible coffee cup, especially if I can have a double down from KFC before the edible cup, and that's the double down: 2 patties
Heart
sandwiched
attack.
with bacon, cheese, and sauce.
Heart attack.
That to me is a perfect meal. Yay!
I say heck yay.
Heck yay?
First of all, it's a really great marketing ploy because they want to make a lot of money off their coffee. Coffee sells, and they're not known for it. Good way to do it. And why not?
Because I always have coffee
Seattle's
with fried
best
chicken.
coffee.
Right.
It's phenomenal. Coffee, fried chicken.
It comes right to your mind, right? Natural.
Particularly when you put lots of cream and lots of sugar on it,
Well-
like Mr. Black does from Pulp Fiction. That's why
There
they
you
do
go.
it.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
I'm a big yay also. I mean, look, it's a bad idea for people who are built like me. But in principle, we have those spoons you can stir coffee with made of chocolate, so now go with the cup. Right? Why not?
Little drop of joy.
Right?
Yeah.
People are into
Your
it. It's
day.
fun. Coffee,
Yeah.
chocolate.
We're paying
Where's
$5
the
for a
downside?
cup of coffee. We might as well get a little snack.
Get a little
with it.
something
Extra,
out
little
of it,
extra,
right?
yeah.
I can't wait until I go to KFC in Miami and it's a 95-degree day and I drink my coffee and it melts as I'm trying to eat it. It's just going to be, it's going to lead to some sort of lawsuit. I can see it. Anyway, a new study out of Sweden shows a connection between heavy drinking and low IQs in young men. Who knew? Oh, man. Well, look how Dave Briggs turned out. And the rabbi, for that matter. So I already call Bupkis on this study. Anyway, they studied, believe it or not, 50,000 Swedish men, that showed that men with lower results on their IQ test consumed higher levels of alcohol. It took 50,000 Swedes to get to that conclusion. However, a 2010 from the London School of Economics claimed that the cleverest, if that's a word, women are the heaviest drinkers, finding that women who performed exceptionally in school as children are more likely to drink daily as adults. Jenny Crumpton. So here's the question. Should the men of the Daily Wrap no longer go to happy hour before, obviously, and after every show to help bump our IQs, yay or nay, Rabbi?
I'm sorry, I had a hard time following all that.
Basically, we drink, we get dumber, chicks do it, they get smarter.
Sounds
Good
good to
or
me. I think I'm a big thumbs up.
Boom. That's not even yay or nay. It's thumbs up or down. Go ahead.
Well, everybody's wittier when they're drunk. I mean, that's just true. And the guy that was, the head of my class in high school and the class above me, big drinker, big pot smoker too. Brilliant. And witty. So
Did you date him? Because that's kind of a flirtatious nostalgia that you're having
I
here.
did not, but I wished I could be more like him. Hence, I started drinking a nightly glass of red wine.
Wow. One day I'm going to dig into your past on the show. Dave?
I firmly believe I would have gone to Duke had I not been such a heavy drinker, so it clearly made me a state school guy. Maybe Keith Olbermann didn't drink as a young man, and that's what made him go to
Wow.
Cornell.
That's what he's
He's
still angry
angry.
about.
He's
That's what he's still angry about.
Yeah.
His childhood denied.
Yes,
Briggs
lack
did not
of
go to
wit.
Penn State. I believe he is a Buffalo.
I'm
the
a
University
Colorado
of
buff.
Colorado.
Drank too much during and before college.
Now they're part of the Pacific 12, even though they're about 1,000 miles away from the coast. Anyway, Mein Kampf, the book having once served as an unofficial Nazi Bible, has been banned from domestic reprints since the end of World War II. Well, that's a good thing. Well, they'll soon be returning to German bookstores. Okay, the historical society behind funding the reprints argues it will be a great academic tool and will not pose any danger. The timing is a bit peculiar because of the rise of anti-Semitism. We're now seeing in Europe reprinting Mein Kampf, yay or nay, Jenny Crumpton.
My instinct is nay. However, if you don't really know the details of your dark past, we're doomed. So-
Rabbi, quick yay or nay?
Hearts a nay, heads a yay. Banning books, bad idea.
Yeah.
Dave?
I am right with you on that, Reverend. I agree on both behalves.
Okay, I am. How do you say yes in German?
Yeah.
Ja?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ja for
Yeah.
what those guys said. Anyway, that's our show for the evening. Panel, thank you. I
you.
appreciate it, and thank you all for tuning in. Hope you catch us tomorrow night at 6 p.m. For more Daily Wrap, I'm Joe Concha saying bye-bye.